Welcome to the Peugeot 208. I'm going to take you for a walk around the outside, we're going to look at the inside, and then we're going to take it for a drive. So this is a really good looking car. You'll see in the front here, lots of sort of chrome bits right in the inset of the grille, but they don't actually touch. Like every little outset has a little bit of chrome on it. We've got the Peugeot badge over there and the 208 badge over there. What really lets this thing stand out is you've got your sort of normal lights over there, and you also have these massive daytime running lights. So it's very visible and very distinct from like quite a distance. Overall, sort of the front of the car looks really nice. I've seen one or two sort of oncoming in the traffic, and it looks really fantastic. Moving around to the side, you'll see the side profile of this car still looks really, really good. The red that they've painted this car in is absolutely gorgeous. You've got a couple of interesting bits and pieces. No keyless entry, so you do need to unlock with the keys. Mirrors are color coded. You have this sort of little divot at the back here, which kind of looks quite cool, a little wing at the back. And then we move around to the back of this Peugeot, where I think it just carries on looking absolutely fantastic. You'll see the light clusters over here are actually quite detailed. You have three lights there. It's kind of that sort of three-pronged claw look that most of the Peugeots have these days. They light up. I'll show you the light display in a second. You've obviously got the 208 badging at the back there. What is interesting is when you open the boot actually sits all the way at the bottom there, and the catch sits over here. You have this kind of black band connecting the lights. Not actually a light, just sort of black plastic. Peugeot badging on there and the Peugeot logo, and so when you open the boot, that's the catch that does the boot. At the back, you kind of have a little bit of like a diffuser section, this black section at the bottom, single exhaust over there, and like nothing over there. I appreciate that there's no sort of fake exhaust pipes or anything like that. Extra light over here for braking, reflectors on that side, and the overall look and feel of the back of this little car is really, really nice. From every angle, this car just looks absolutely gorgeous. It's a really, really nice little car. Right, driving the 1.2 Allure. So that's the model. There are two different variants of this. There's obviously the manual box, which is what I've got, and then there is the auto box. But let's talk about the manual box. A couple of things quickly. It's a 1.2 liter 3-cylinder engine, and when you push it a little bit, you kind of get that raspy sound that comes from the way that a 3-cylinder fires. This one produces 74 kilowatts and 205 Newton meters. So like on paper, not a lot, but it pulls better than you'd imagine. There's a bit more power, sort of 92 kilowatts available in the auto, but that's probably because the box is more sluggish. But in this, the manual box does a fantastic job. The clutch is super soft, so there's not really any feedback there. The gear changes are all buttery, so it's really easy to shift through the gears, but it's not any kind of performance gearbox. Having said that though, it does pull really nicely. You need to keep the revs up a little bit. Once or twice I sort of found myself either stuck in 4th or 5th. In 6th, if you're down at like 2,500 revs, it's just not a whole lot of power and torque available. Once I got this on the highway, and often cars this size run out of steam at about 120 kilometers an hour. This pushed way past the 120 mark and actually did relatively well. So even on the highway, you got ample power. So that was surprising to me. I wasn't expecting it to be as sort of lively as it is. The steering position is like a whole new topic. We'll cover that in a minute when we cover the inside. But the steering is super light, super easy. It's got a great turning circle that kind of turns on itself. So in and around town, getting in and out of parking bays, this little car does a fantastic job. And so like when you put all those things together, you've got an easy to drive car with a manual box, sooty power, easy steering, easy handling. It's a great little town car. This thing comes in at about 370 odd thousand rand, which is pretty standard for anything in this class at the moment. It's really well spec'd, it's really well equipped, so no gripes and no complaints over there. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, there's no keyless entry on the outside, so you have to unlock the car. When you get in, the interesting bits start. So for starters, in the door here, there's this kind of green finish, which doesn't glow. It's like that's painted on. To start the car, you need to actually press the clutch to get it going. You hold the button for a second or so, the button lives up here and it starts. Now I'm holding the camera at roughly my eye height. You can already see the problem, can't you? This thing is in the way of that thing. Now you can adjust it, so obviously you can drop it, but if you drop it, like the steering wheel quite literally sits in your lap, which It's a bit of an awkward position. So if you raise it to where it's comfortable, and that's a sort of comfortable height, it quite honestly blocks a lot of your visibility. So my normal eye height visibility is about that at the very top. So I kind of have to drop it down here to get a view of the cluster, but then this sits very low down and it's manually adjustable. Anyways, that aside, that's what the steering wheel looks like. Typical Peugeot. Not quite round, it's kind of flat at the top, flat at the bottom, a couple of bulges here and there, volume controls on the left, all the screen controls on the right. Now I don't know whether you can actually see this in the camera or in the video, but it's a 3D screen. So there's like a projector thingy at the top that projects onto a display that overlays the actual screen. So the visual that you get as the driver is that most of that is actually 3D. Very interesting sort of cluster here, because there's a gap over here that you can kind of see through. So that's interesting. And then when you put the indicators on, that's actually where the indicators light up. So the indicators don't indicate in the dash, which is actually like really funky and futuristic and cool. So this whole situation I think could possibly be a little bit better. I'm not 100% sure how to solve it. Like, that's a comfortable position where it's not all the way down in my lap, so I actually have some sort of legroom there, and I can kind of see the screen over there. What you do have is this sort of fake, I know it's fake because it's actually soft, sort of carbon fiber finish over here, really funky vents over there, really funky speakers that kind of face you. I suppose that's quite cool. In the center here, typical Peugeot with these sort of piano keys. Now I want to talk about these piano keys. What you've got here is basically a set of all the emergency stuff. So that's recirculation, that just turns the aircon right off. Now it's gone. Actually, let's leave it on off for the video. You can go max AC, you got your hazards, door lock, front and back demisters and defoggers. If you want to control anything else, like you want to change the temperature of the car, of the aircon, there's nothing here. You have to go through the screens. You tap over there and you can change that. You have some navigation, which is not built in here. Your audio obviously lives over there. Apple CarPlay is supported via this USB port, which is quite lacquer. Your phone settings on there, obviously, if you've connected via Bluetooth. This is kind of a menu kind of thing. You can do photos, whatever, and there's all your car settings. So they've made the buttons here minimalist, and I quite like it. I won't lie, this actually is quite nice. You kind of have the stuff you need immediate access to, like as a physical touch button, stuff like that. Everything else lives in the screen. What is interesting, if CarPlay is enabled, you want to get to CarPlay, you have to click there, and then that button's available, so you can actually tap CarPlay and go back to CarPlay. What is also nice is that they have given you a volume control, a whole button to turn to change the volume. And if you press it, obviously it turns the radio off and on. In the center console here, you have this sort of cover over here. It's all like this piano black finish. You press it, it pops open, and there's a sort of mat on the inside. Big enough for a phone, but no charging mat. I suspect you might be able to get a charging mat as an optional extra, and that kind of tucks away quite neatly. So this is very sexy. This is very neat, very clean. You obviously have another compartment over there. The sort of indented faux carbon fiber thing runs all the way through the cabin, so you kind of have this two-step sort of dash process, which also like really good materials, really nicely finished. More of that sort of green paint happening over there. Same as on the driver's side, you have those aircon and that sort of speaker arrangement. If you look carefully, you'll see the speaker actually only lives in this section. There's nothing over there. So the interior cabin is actually quite interesting. It's very minimalist. It's very neat. Everything's very well finished, well kind of laid out, except for that little vibe. But it's a very sort of neat, very functional cabin. Over here we have the manual gear lever, so reverse is that way and up. Actually no, so reverse is you pull over there, you go across, and then you go up. That pops you in reverse. First, second, fourth, fifth, sixth, standard stuff. Gear lever. What is interesting is when you kick it into reverse, it does have a reverse angle camera, but you'll see this side doesn't actually do anything until you begin reversing. It's almost as if it like fills in the blanks. So it's kind of got a picture of what's behind you, and as you reverse, it kind of fills up those blanks, which is an interesting way of doing it. So I'm really a fan of this little car. I think it's great. It's well finished, it drives well, it looks great. It's quite affordable as far as small hatches go. The power delivery is fantastic. It's an excellent, excellent little hatch.